Welcome to the Catch Up with Claire. I'm your host, Claire Hoon, and every week we hand the mic to women who are showing up, speaking out, and figuring it out in real time. Because when women start talking, no topic is off limits. Careers, identity shifts, friendships, family dynamics, breakups, big dreams, bigger feelings, and yes, motherhood too. Think of it like calling your best friend on the landline in 1999. Lighthearted, unfiltered, and somehow deeper than you expected. Whether you're raising your kids, raising standards, or raising hell, this space is for you. So settle in. It's time to catch up. Noureen, welcome to the Catch Up with Claire.
Thank you for having me again.
I was going to say, a better way to say it is welcome back to the Catch Up with Claire, although unfortunately this is going to be the first time that the audience is actually going to hear our conversation. So Noureen and I recorded together back in November, almost 5 months ago, which is wild. We were connected through a mutual friend, had such an incredible conversation. I was like, I feel like I have known this woman my whole life. And then when I went to edit, all of the audio didn't save and record. And I did everything to try and recover it. And it was just such a gut punch because this was such a good conversation.
I remember we left the conversation saying that we wanted to talk more and we had so much more to talk about. We were so excited, but hopefully this one is similar or the same.
It will be just as good, if not better. Let's do a little orientation to time and space. So right now it is 8:45 Sunday morning in New York City. Tell listeners where you're chatting with us from.
So I'm talking to you from Cairo and it's 2:45 p.m. So there's a bit of a time difference, but Claire and I have managed to make it work despite our time differences, schedule differences, time zones, kids, everything. So we're very excited about that.
I feel like it's like us rescheduling. I feel like we were able to get the first one on the calendar with very little stress and just this date works for both of us. We're going to put it out there. We had, like I said, had a great conversation. The reschedule, I feel like, is the definition of being two working moms living across oceans from each other. We've both had sick kids. We've both had work commitments. I have messed up the time zone difference. And I feel like it is just I was saying to a girlfriend earlier, feel like I'm the one who always has to cancel on friends who don't have kids because you just don't, you wake up and you don't know what life is going to hand you. Who's going to be sick? Who's going to be off school? Just a million things. And you know what? Here we are.
Yeah, and I get that because I think people who don't have kids will never, they might say oh, we understand and it's okay, but they never really understand until they're in the same situation. And you always feel really bad, but then you have to say, no, it's life and things happen. And it's one of the things that we were actually talking about last time.
And I know we were just talking about this too before we even recorded because, full disclosure, I messed up the time zone. We had daylight savings time here last week. And so I was on an hour early, but I just feel like I've been hit with a freight train. We're in a sleep regression that I feel like isn't actually a regression. It's just the baby's choice to not sleep anymore. And we were saying I never understood how what is the word I'm even I can't even form the word. It is so hard to function when you are sleep deprived.
Sleeping.
And she just wakes up now. This has been going on for a month, and which is why I think it started as a regression, and now it's a habit for her to wake up in the middle of the night. But she's up for an hour. It's not like she wants a little comfort or pat on the back. She's up and rearing and ready to go.
She wants to play.
And
Ready to play.
Yeah.
I can relate because my twins do the same. And I think on those nights, I'm just the praying that, the sun comes up and a new day starts. And I just have to, what happened yesterday is finished and I have to start over. But I can really relate. And I think every mom listening or watching can find, a similar situation that she's probably been in.
Has been through it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into it, Noureen. Can you start off by introducing yourself in your own words for us?
Yes. Okay, so I am a counseling psychologist. I have a master's degree in counseling. Used to be a teacher, a psychology teacher, but I quit maybe 2 years ago because with motherhood, speaking of motherhood, it was very hard to find like a good balance between, working both jobs, being a mom. So I'm a counseling psychologist. I work part time, and that's the schedule that works with my kids. I work with adults, maybe let's say age 18, 19 and on. I work mostly with anxiety. I also work with like mood disorders, but mainly with anxiety, people who are coming in with relationship issues, self-esteem issues, things like that.
And you are a mom of 3.
Three. Yeah, I'm almost three. And two of them, they're twins. So that's another challenge in itself.
Remind me, because I feel like our kids are older too or right around, so my oldest, so I have 7, 4, and 11 months. Where are your kids?
My oldest is 6 going on 7. She'll be 7 in a few months. And my
Mhm.
twins are 20 months. They're a year and 7 or 8 months, I guess. Yeah, 8 months, I think. A year and 8
It's
months.
like a year and a half, little over a year and a
Little
half.
over a year and a half, yeah. And it's chaos in my house now. It's a disaster. If I turn the camera, you would see.
I am very strategic with camera angles at all time because anything right out of frame is danger zone. I have 2 car seats sitting in front of me. I have my daughter got into my Post-it notes, and she just took 1 Post-it note at a time
Oh,
because that's a fun game. So, my office is covered in I see crayons. Yeah, no, I it's just utter chaos.
chaos.
And I feel like that's one of the challenges too of you just never feel like your space is your own. Like, it's always I don't know, I struggle with that side of it too. Yesterday, we were actually supposed to have such a busy day yesterday, and so many of our plans, all except for one of our plans, were canceled, and which also thank you for being flexible because we moved this earlier. But so we ended up being home most of the day, and we were in our kids' room, and they were just taking every single toy they owned out, all of the stuffies, like, everywhere, and I was like, "Guys, I can't even walk in here. What is going on?" And so we made it a game to like, do we really play with all of this? And we ended up getting rid of like 4 bags of donating 4 bags of toys that like they haven't touched in years. Like it's weird to see the emotional attachment they have to plastic.
Yeah,
I don't know if your kids do this too,
they
but I'm
do
like,
this. Yeah,
this has been in a drawer or under the covers in the bottom of the bed for months.
yeah.
You can't tell me that you
Right,
love
to
this
play
that
with it.
much.
Yeah. The thing is, I think my oldest child, she would, if I try, like I'd be like, "Do you play with this?" She'd be like, "Yes," and she doesn't. So I have to be really sneaky about how I get rid of things and just wait like till she's at school and then gradually just. But she's okay with it. But I think it's like you said, the attachment. But when you have like clutter everywhere, you feel like you're overstimulated. So I think it's something that you just have to do.
Yeah, absolutely
Right.
have to do, and I feel like it's hard because I don't know what your broader family looks like. So my husband and I are both one of 3 siblings. We're the only ones who have kids so far. And so we have a lot of family and grandparents that love to provide things for our kids, which is like we're so blessed and fortunate with how loved our kids are. And we live in a tiny New York City apartment, and they don't need
All the
all of this
toys.
stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes,
That's true. We're the
it's such a
same.
compromise all the
We're
time.
the same. And then like telling the grandparents, like always saying like, and it's the same with like toys and food. Like we like to do things a certain way, but they like to do things a different way. And they would like to kind of spoil their grandkids because their grandkids are the first grandkids on both sides also. So it's the same. We have the same struggle.
We're really close to our family, like, there's no amount of like, I know people don't have the same relationships and dynamics that we do, but I feel like in one way, it's almost harder because you don't wanna hurt like, I don't wanna hurt anyone's feelings, and I know it comes from a place of love. Someone said this to me one time of, like, about me, like, my motherhood like, it's their childhood, but it's also our motherhood. Like, our motherhood is also their grandparenthood. And so I feel empathetic and, like, again, such a great like, very grateful from where we're coming from with them, but I'm like, "Can you help make this easier for me?"
That's sometimes I wanna say the same because you're grateful that you have people helping you and that you have company and that, you don't have to take care of your kids all the time on your own, but at the same time, you still want things to go your way, so it's a struggle, and I also my mom said something to me a while ago, and I didn't think about it like that, but she said, "I'm much more relaxed around your kids than I was with you guys."
Mhm.
Because they get to enjoy them in a way that they didn't necessarily have when we were kids because they were like so wrapped up in the anxiety of things and running things a certain way like how we are now, but now they just get to enjoy them and spoil them, and she was telling me like let us enjoy them in that way because we didn't really get to know
Totally.
you as kids.
Which I get, like, it is so yeah, we're responsible for raising good humans, and so, yeah, when we're on that side of the spectrum years and years and years from now, I'm sure I'm gonna be just as guilty, but I don't know, it adds to the dynamic. Okay, Noreen, last time we connected, I feel like we just were going back and forth because our stories of motherhood and really kind of life are so similar, despite, again, living in very different parts of the world. I think what we connected it is like we're so similar despite the
Yeah.
distance. And we both went to school and have our masters in mine's in counseling and yours in counseling psychology. You ended up practicing, I ended up taking a different career path and both had pretty severe experiences with postpartum depression, had a hard time figuring out do we expand our family after what we had as a first time mom and how do we come to those decisions? I don't want to necessarily repeat our conversation because it was a special conversation. I don't think we'll do it service, but I'm curious and I've been reflecting on this. So when we first spoke, what was that? My baby was she had just turned 5 months old, and now she's about to turn 1. So I was in a very different phase too of postpartum with a 5-month-old versus like she's still a baby. Just turned 11 months now. Um, and I have found this 3rd time so cathartic and healing. Like, I feel like the lessons I had from being a first-time mom, being a second-time mom, to now where I am as I have this experience and sort of
You're correct.
confidence about it. And I also feel in certain regards like a first-time mom with my oldest because, like, I'm constantly reminded of, "Oh, I know what I know about baby and the various phases of being a baby and a toddler, and even though I can't even form words and sentences 'cause I'm so sleep deprived right now, I know that's going to end." Like, I know the baby will sleep again. With my 7-year-old,
You didn't feel like
and everything is new with him, and I forget that even though I have 7 years with him, every phase that he goes through is still a first time phase with me, and I feel like it's been really apparent the past couple months with just dynamics at school and socially, and, like, he's not like, obviously, he's not a toddler anymore, but, like, he's also not, like, a full adolescent kid yet, like, he's in, like, a very kid phase. So it's really I don't know, and not that I don't wanna say I've struggled with it, but it's been a learning curve, I feel like, and I'm curious where you land with this with your daughter almost being 7, of they know enough now and you can have conversations, and so you I don't know, I tend to give him not that he doesn't deserve the credit, because he does, but then there's things that happen, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, you're just 7," like, I don't know, it's been an interesting turn or phase of parenthood for me being on, like, a kid who can have full thoughts and opinions and push back to, like, a baby who
it was basically
more or less is like, she's not gonna move, like, she's not gonna do anything I tell like, it's very different.
very different. That's very true. I think I'm with Tamara, my oldest daughter. I think that the one thing that I relate to so much, like what you said, every single phase that she's going through is new for me. Since she was a baby, growing up, going to school, like her own problems at school, like let's say she's having an issue with a friend or something, it's all new to me. But she's also really trying to get her independence out. And I'm kind of struggling with, yeah, but you can be a bit more independent, but you're still a child. And this pushback with my other kids, obviously it's not like that because they're still learning to talk. They're still, there's chaos everywhere. So it's a completely different phase. But I think what's different in with her and them is that I think I have much more patience with them that I didn't necessarily have with her. I was
Mhm.
so like all over the place. Things have to be a certain way. When does she sleep? How much she eats? What she eats? But with them, I'm much more flexible, and I don't think I had that flexibility when she was younger. And now, even with her, like I have that flexibility, but it's also like you said, like everything is so new that I feel like I have to be on top of things. But I know when I get to that phase years and years from now with my youngest, I'm not going to feel the same because I'm going to feel like, oh, it does pass. So I'm much more
I feel like
flexible with them and patient, I think, and I don't have that same patience with her. And actually, sometimes, Claire, I think it makes me feel bad because I feel like, I give her as like we all try to be good enough parents, I think. But sometimes because she needs more, I don't know if I have the emotional capacity because I also take care of two other kids. And they seem to be easier in a way, you know?
Mhm.
So I don't know if you relate to
Totally.
that.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I feel like I read this thing one time where it's like, your household is the age of your oldest child. And I actually feel it more with my middle daughter now. It's probably a little bit different because your youngest two are twins. I'm actually curious if you see differences or similarities between them. It's been a learning curve for me recently of I can't parent my middle child the way I parent my oldest, and realizing we've catered so much of what we do around so my oldest is RJ, around him and what his interests are and what he wants because he's just not that he's more vocal about it, but he's just, like, the oldest kid, and so, like,
Been around.
if we wanna play a game, we never make him come down to her level, we always make her rise up to his level, which I just figured out in the past couple of weeks of, like, anytime we're playing a board game, we let him pick, but they're often too old for her, and so I just got her a set of games, and we were like, "RJ, we're gonna alternate now, so, like, you get to pick one night, and then she gets to pick." Giving her 'cause I was like, I feel bad when I figured out that we were doing this because she, like, never wanted to play games with us, and I was like, "Oh, because she's too young to be able to understand."
What's
Yeah,
happening?
um, so it's been I don't know, like, you constantly have to learn and pivot the needs of the child, which is just like,
Exhausting.
why can't it be easy?
Exhausting.
Yes,
Well, I
exhausting.
think, Claire, for you, this is even more of a challenge than it is for me because you're dealing with three different ages. Like, let's say, okay, the baby is a baby, but I think
Mhm.
your middle child and your oldest child, like 4 and 7, there's still their differences in how they think and their needs and how they play. So I think for you, tailoring is different because for me, I'm still at the phase where they're babies. They're just basically throw things around. And she's much, much older than them. So she wants like someone to like independent play, also someone to play with her. And she thinks like
Mhm.
it's more like I think she has more needs. So I don't really have to, I think for you it's probably like more of a struggle because you have to tailor your needs and expectations based on every child. For me, it's just like they're very young, you're much older, so there's no, you know. I think
They haven't
my struggle comes from they started to kind of not argue, but obviously my oldest is my youngest two, Melek, who's the boy. He's recently learned for some reason to he's become not aggressive, but he when he's excited he uses his hands and he hits and for some reason he always wants to go to Tamara, the oldest, and he gets so excited so he hits her or slaps her or pulls her hair. And I have to kind of get in the middle and explain like to tell him, obviously, don't use your hands, gentle hands, all these things, but explain to her that he doesn't understand. And she gets so frustrated.
Yes. I feel like it's so hard too because the older they get, it becomes harder, I feel like, to connect with other parents about it because like, when they're a baby, they don't it's not like they don't know, like, I feel like, especially in, like, the social media face space, there's so many resources around babies up until, like, toddlerhood,
Yeah,
but then I feel like you get into school-age kids, and it's, like, hard because you don't wanna be talking about your kid and disrespecting, like, their own experience or like, they could hear things that we're saying about them and have feelings about that or feel like, you know? And so I feel like it's harder and then you also I don't know, I don't wanna be like, "Oh, my kids are fighting all the time," but then I'm also like, "Is this normal? Is it just my kids that fight all the time and don't understand and I'm constantly refereeing?" But, like, nobody it's like, it doesn't feel safe enough to talk about, you know?
yeah. But it's I think I can relate because I think everyone's kids go through that, no matter the age difference, because it's a power struggle. The oldest wants to be in charge, she wants to do certain things. The youngest don't really understand, so you have to be kind of like mediating between them, but no one really talks about the and that reminds me of another thing. No one really talks about the struggles of motherhood as honestly as we would like them to. So I think it makes it harder to just say, like I'm struggling with this one area in my with my kids. So yeah, I can relate.
I feel like I feel like we're so quick to judge when it becomes behavioral, whereas it's like if my kid isn't sleeping or my kid isn't eating or it took longer to potty train them, like those are skills that every kid has to go through. But when it becomes behavioral or fighting, that feels like it's ascribed to their personality of like, oh, well, that's a difficult kid or that's a kid that doesn't listen. It feels more personal versus
Very true. It's very
and
true.
which it's still a skill, and so but, like, so yeah, man, it's
Because
just
it kind of
hard.
becomes a reflection. I get that because it kind of becomes it's not really a reflection, but we read into it like it's a reflection of our parenting, or we must have done
Totally,
something wrong, even though, like, thinking about my son who's really recently, very recently, started to use his hands or hit or become a bit more aggressive. I don't know where that comes from. And if I had seen, I'm not a judgmental person, but like maybe 10 years ago, if I had seen a child who was like almost two doing that, I would have been like, I wonder if he saw his mom do that. Totally. And then now I'm like, no one uses their hands. No one hits in our house. So I get the fact that, behavioral things are so much easier to judge. And so we kind of go quiet because we don't want other people judging us or saying like, maybe you did something or maybe it's your problem or maybe.
Oh, I'm just as guilty of it. I remember vividly when my son was, like, 18 months to
Yeah.
2 years, and we would go to the playground, and he'd be in the sandbox, and there would be, like, 3 or 4 or 5-year-olds that would come over and just, like, take his toy or, like, be really close in his face, and I'm like,
There
I cannot like, I will never have my kid be like, my kid will know better. And like, oh my God, what an asshole am I to judge? And now I know, like, no, I am constantly telling my kids, be respectful of other kids. Like, you are older than a lot of kids there and mind their space. And like, they hear it, they also you have to, like, constantly be on top of them, but exactly as you said, it feels when it's behavioral like that, it feels like a reflection on parenting versus, "No, this is a normal thing that kids do," and not because we're bad parents or not paying attention.
I think we only start to really understand when we become parents. And before that, it's
Totally.
just like, oh, when I become a parent, I'm never going to, but you end up doing every single thing you said you'd never do, or and you really end up, you stop judging people because you realize that parenting is hard.
Pivoting to us a little bit here, something that's been coming up in conversation with some other guests I've had on, and also just sort of like in my social group, is this topic around female friendships. And I feel like we're kind of touching a little bit on it here and there of like, until you're a parent, you don't really understand. But I'm curious and it came up from like parents and moms, like basically we've identified we being this group I'm talking to, motherhood being the biggest differentiator in a dynamic shift amongst female friends. So like friend groups who either someone's the first mom in the group or the last one to have kids and all of the other friends have kids, and just realizing that it changes dynamics. And I've been like sort of experiencing this in my own life of I was the first to have kids. I also live in a city where all of my friends have since moved from. So I've had to try and create a
Original.
new group of friends, which is so hard. I feel like sometimes motherhood can be conducive to it, but also, as we've just talked about, like, motherhood could also be, like, a space with, like, a lot of judgment and a lot of noise in it, and so trying to find I feel like friends in general as an adult is so hard. Like, we have these, like, conducive settings growing up from, like, school to college to, like, being young professionals. I don't know, this is just, like, a very open-ended me putting it out there, but I'm curious, like, how you've experienced this.
Think for me, friendships, like one of the things that really resonated with me was like trying to, because I've been through a period in my life also where I wasn't necessarily the first person to have kids, but I grew apart from many of the people that I used to think I would be friends with forever because we didn't have the same experience, whether they were parents or not, or whether they, sometimes you're in a different phase of your life, or like you said, someone moves away and you just have to keep finding it, not a different circle, but you have to find different people that fit where you are in your life now. So yeah, that's for sure for the same for me, for sure.
And it's been a chat like, it's not what you expect, and, like, I feel like you just ta I did at least, took for granted that friends would just sort of be there when I needed them. Like, I would just somehow have this group that would just
Show up
show
for you.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, why did I have that expectation? Like, I did nothing to try and build this support system that doesn't exist because I didn't try and create it. So it's dawned on me recently, and I've shared on some other episodes, like, my therapist, like, at the end of last year, was like, "So I think 2026 is the year we focus on friendships." And I was like, I have really good friends, but none of them live here, and I feel like it's something so hard when, like, picking up the phone and, like, I realize now, like, sometimes, like, when I'm walking the subway or walking to the office, I'll pick up a but, like, my friends are also, like, at work or doing whatever they're doing, so it's just so hard to connect with people who aren't here, and then also trying to just build up your own new friendships,
Yeah. And I
like, starting from 0.
Yeah, it's very challenging. It's very hard because you have your own things going on. And I think when you have a limited physical capacity and emotional capacity, it's just harder to reach out to people. And even if you intend to, you don't necessarily do it. And you reminded me, Claire, actually of something I think someone was saying it on Instagram, maybe. I can't remember. She was saying, if you want to have a village, you have to be a villager. And I was just like,
Yes.
yeah, this was eye opening for me because we technically know that, but if we're not willing to put in the effort, which is hard, then, we're going to find ourselves doing things on our own because we're not putting in. And it's not necessarily because you're not putting in effort, but it's, you don't have the emotional capacity, you're tired, you have things going on, but we have to keep that going if we want that in return. And we don't really think about it.
Totally. You have to be if you want that, you have to be willing to be inconvenienced sometimes. Like, you have to be like, even when you're tired, you still have to show up, and even when you wanna sit at home on your couch in your sweatpants because your kids have been yelling at you all day, you have to be willing to be like, "Yeah, no, I'm tired, and I'm still gonna wear my sweatpants, but I'm gonna show up." Yeah.
I think I've really struggled with that. I don't know if you have, but I've really struggled with this idea of like at the end of the day, if a friend wants to see me or go out and I know I have some time, but I'm just so tired. Like, let's say this friend doesn't have kids or like they've been working all day, they have their own things going on, but I'm just so tired. So I say, like, I want to promise that I'll go out with you, but I'm not really sure that I can overpromise now. But I've been working on saying yes more because when I don't say yes and I'm always saying no, I'm just tired, you end up feeling very alone
Mhm.
and it's like your own doing, basically.
Totally. And I feel like I don't know actually, this maybe when we talk about differences of the pandemic, like, here in the US versus how you experienced it in Egypt. I feel like it was like, we went so inward, and it was for a year, 2 years, quote, unquote, "unsafe," and there was, like, the reason to be inward, and I feel like it took a long time
Oh,
to we became so digitally connected in that time where we were having, this, like, complete overload of social media conversations and connecting and sharing through digital spaces that we took for granted. Like, we can now go back, like, it became easy to go inward and say no, and then we became used to having the digital connection of, like, "Oh, well, I saw on her TikTok or Instagram stories what she was up to, and so I don't need to pick up the phone and call." Or, "I saw that her kid is sick, and so I'm not gonna, like, so she probably doesn't wanna go out." Like, making all of these assumptions because we became so digitally connected through these platforms, and now I've realized, like, it's just not the same. Like,
not the same.
you and I are having this conversation, but, like, and I feel like we've caught up or, like, stayed in touch because we follow each other and we'll message each other about things we post or are saying, but it's just not the same as being like, "Oh my god, Noureen, I'm so tired," you know? But I feel like we take that for granted, and it finally again, I don't know, you'll tell me if you've seen this trend for 2026 around the year of the analog hobby and, like, going back to, like, being outside and doing things with our hands again, and I feel like that's kind of true with socialization and getting out, like, we have to get out of our own 4 walls, we have to get out of the screen, go to brunch, go to happy hour, go sit on a park bench together, like, go push your strollers together.
Yeah,
It makes a difference.
a huge difference. I mean, you've probably had one of those days where you just like want to stay in, you're not in a good mood, your kids are all over the place, you just feel like going to be a tough day. And then you go out, you don't want to go out, but you go out and you come back and you are in a much better mood than you were when you first left. And I completely get what you're saying. Like, we have to be doing these things. We have to be leaving our phones. We have to be, like someone was saying, touching grass. And we have to be more, out in the world and not isolated with ourselves. Because I think it's so easy to just fall back into, oh, I don't need to do that. I'm happy. I don't want to be inconvenienced. I'm too tired. And I think another thing, a client was mentioning this to me actually very recently when we were talking about COVID, and she was saying that ever since COVID and other factors in her life, she's felt very like she's lost her social skills.
Yes.
Yeah. She's like, I never had social anxiety, but all of a sudden talking to people feels hard. Like I don't know what to say or how to speak. And it's because we are so used to, like just being with ourselves and not being, like you said, inconvenienced. And so we lose our social skills.
I'm curious what it's like in because 'cause you're in Cairo, correct? In Egypt? There's this I think it's always been a culture of New York of not isolated is the wrong word, but, like, for instance, the culture in the Northeast versus the Southeast of the United States is very different. So, I went to school in New Orleans, which is in the South, in Louisiana, and anywhere you go, "Hey, how you doing?" Like, you're checking out your groceries, the grocery cashier register is talking to you, she's asking how you're very friendly, always, like, saying hi, always, "How's your day? Good morning." Like, truly people, like, have never met a stranger because everyone is always just, like, exchanging pleasantries and chatting and everything. In New York, it's very different, and I remember I struggled with this, like, I had culture shock when I moved here because you'd get on the subway and there would be 100 people in the morning shoved in this tiny little tin can, silent. Like, no one was speaking, no one was making eye contact. And, like, I get it a little bit because, like,
Faces.
it's 7 in the morning, we're all trying to get to work. But, like, that's representative of, like, an experience. Like, no one here, when we're checking out in the grocery line, is asking how your day was. Like, we are scanning our groceries so fast, trying to get in and move on.
And you would find it
But I
weird
feel
if
like
someone said something. If someone was I feel
totally.
like, "What's going on?"
Totally, and, like, my mom comes here now and she'll, like, chat with everyone, and I'm like, "Oh my god, mom, stop, like, you're not supposed to talk to people." But, like, I feel like it's culturally different too of, like, and I say this whole example of how do we break down some of these of, like, you wanna and I feel like there's also a difference, I will say, out of, like, especially as females, there's a safety issue too, like, there's a lot more people and a lot more things happening in a very large city like New York of you're not just gonna go strike up a conversation with a stranger because you don't know what faculties this person is in. But I feel like it does make it hard, like, we start off from a position of I don't know, stepping back versus leaning into the conversation and dialogue, which all feeds into we just stay in our own little lane, looking down at, the path in front of us versus looking up and finding people to connect with. I don't know.
Yeah, I do believe that. I think it's here you have the same I think some things are similar, some things are different. The thing that I find very similar is that yeah, we it's not that it's not safe, but you wouldn't go up to someone like if you're walking or so, you wouldn't go up to someone and just like strike up a conversation because you never know what this person who this person is and like issues of safety are a concern, but at the same time I feel like I relate to what you're saying because when you come from a place where people are very friendly, people are very warm, people just talk and ask how you're doing, and then you move somewhere and it's just everyone's on their own, everyone's in their own head, no one talks to anyone. It can be a struggle because especially if you like connecting to people. In Egypt, the thing that's different though is that as a culture, we are very much connected and like the family unit is always takes
Mm.
a bigger I think, has a bigger weight than the individual needs of anyone. And I think that's where it might be a bit different. Like I've noticed, I don't know, but I've the only time I lived in the States was I was very young and it was only for like 5, 6 months, so it doesn't really count. But one of the things I did notice, like traveling or living there very, very, very briefly, is that people are more maybe individualistic and here it's a bit different because we always like one of the things we always say is that you have to put people their needs before your own. And it's also that has its own issues for sure. But it's something that we're really used to. And you see, like right now it's Ramadan in Egypt, and Ramadan is like we say like it's the holy month where we fast and we do it for like not only physical cleanse, but a spiritual cleanse to be closer to God, all these things. But every single day, you're basically at someone's house with family, with friends, and it's so important. It's one of those month. It's the month that everybody waits for, because in Egypt, it's like something we really, like we value the like more of the collectivistic. It's a collectivistic culture, I think. So that's one of the things I did notice was different. Like whenever I'm traveling I do notice that that's a bit different. But like you said, it's interesting that there are some parts of the States where people are more, for sure, I can imagine people are more connected. And then other parts where it's not so much like that.
I would say more connected in that and maybe, like, more friendly at first, but I do feel like as a culture, like, pervasive across the United States is exactly as you said, very nuclear, very individualistic. I think part of the challenges that we are facing as a country are because of how me, myself, and I need to be taken care of first, and not how am I extending to make sure that my neighbor is cared for. My needs are met, and I need to make sure that the needs of my neighbors and community are also met. So, like, I could see how you were saying, there's pros and cons to both sides of it, because I'm sure there's a lot of familial enmeshment and, some that could, I see
Big
your face.
problem here. It's a big problem. Yeah.
But I think it's a balance of both because we see what's happening when we're the way like, the individualism is we're not looking out for each other in the greater good, and we are very divided, and, um, a lot of people are hurting because of that.
In Egypt, like it's something we really value, but at the same time, it causes so many issues. Boundary issues are
Mhm,
huge. Like you have many people coming in for counseling because their families don't really have good boundaries. Some people in not every household, but for some households, like boundaries, is that even a thing? Like we're not allowed to have boundaries,
mhm.
like the parents and the children and or the grandparents and the children. So I think that's our challenge, but I think there are pros and cons everywhere for sure. Yeah.
I'm curious, I remember this coming up in our last conversation of sort of the, I don't wanna use the word stigma, but the acceptability of mental health and counseling and getting help, and we were sort of comparing the differences here in the US versus in Egypt, um, and I think it's much more acceptable here in the United States amongst our generation and younger generations. I still feel like there's acknowledgement and acceptance from older generations and more of a, "Good for you, like, that's a good thing for you to do, but I don't need it. Like, I'm fine. Like, you guys
We
have
have work
the
to
problems
do.
that
Yeah,
yeah, you got work to do and, like, go figure it out, but, like, it's not 'cause of us, like, we're not." I'm curious just hearing how you're saying, like, boundary issues are a big challenge. I think a lot of it too is that and even really in starting this podcast is, like, women are able to exist in ways that we haven't in previous generations. And again, you'll tell me the difference of in how it is in Egypt, but here in the United States, like I think of my own mom who when she retired was the first female executive at the company she worked for. My parents divorced when I was 5, and that was like a huge thing that she carried because that was back in the 90s when divorce wasn't, I don't want to say mainstream, but it was very much like it was judged. And I even think that back to like my grandma who raised 5 kids, very different. Her life and what choices she had available to her were very, very different to the ways in which I could be I do exist now of being living in New York away from the family I grew up with, working, raising a family. I just think it's very different, and so I think that's probably some of the tension that we're observing, and is existing of we're finding new ways to exist, and that's also, like, ho you have to figure that out. There's more challenges to figure out with that.
for sure. Women are we like women are having more independence for their choices, but there's I think an even bigger struggle than the states to kind of branch out from what the mainstream culture wants them to do. But for sure, women work, women have more rights. But I think when I think about what you were saying, one of the things that comes to mind is that in therapy, at least 1 in 5 clients, at least, comes in with the problem of, I want to do something or I see my life going a certain way, my parents don't, and that's a struggle for me. Or the older
Um,
generation is not really open to change the way we would like them to be. But I think, yeah, for sure, people have many more opportunities than they did years ago, but it's still a struggle between the older generation and the younger generations. Therapy, for sure. One of the things I keep thinking about is therapy because that example that you said that people are, you do your own thing and then tell me what you learned, or but I don't need it. I've always hear one of the things I hear a lot is, especially in couples, I work with individuals, but you find like women coming in saying, like, I think I need individual counseling because I don't know what to do with my husband or my fiance or my boyfriend. And you hear there's a sentiment that's really said a lot that they would say something like, I want to find a way to fix my relationship because he won't come in for counseling and he doesn't think counseling is okay. And so these ideas are still very much there. And when you say like, why won't he come? And he would say that, oh, I think it's me going to therapy. No, of course I'm not going to therapy. And this is unfortunately very common. That people will seek treatment. People will be making their own choices about their lives, but not everyone is there. And I think that's a very big struggle that we have.
How do you work through that? Because I mean, I'll just share now, like, my husband and I had in the past have done couples therapy after we had, our 2nd child. It's just the dynamic shift in a relationship, and we've been talking recently, I'm like, "I don't think we need couples therapy, but, like, I think you need to go to therapy." And I think there is still, like, so much stigma around, like, "Well, what do you think is wrong with me that I need therapy?" And I'm like, "No, no, no. I don't think there's anything wrong with you. I think this is something that can be additive to you." And I think there's so much stigma around, especially with men too. Like, how do you work when you have clients or patients coming in and they're doing their own work and thriving and in a really good place, and they want their partner or they want their parent or their sibling or whoever to be able to benefit from what they've received, and there's that resistance, like, how do you work through that from, like, managing
Yeah.
expectations?
I think it's the hardest thing I have to do in therapy because it's so heartbreaking to sit with someone who is willing to do the work and wants to come in, but their partner is saying like, "You do the work." And especially when you see that it's a very like I'm not talking about the dynamic where someone is like, "Why do you think I need therapy?" And it's like basically just normal stigma, but they get over that. Like you were talking about, like the situation with you and your husband. No, I'm talking about like relationships where there's one person who is really causing or stirring up so much and the other person is really trying to fix. So the first thing I do is say like, listen, let's talk about your expectations. If you feel like you're coming to therapy because you want to find solutions or a fix for your partner, this is not going to work. And what I would do is kind of shift the focus onto themselves and what type of work they need to get or be doing so that they are less, if they decide to keep going or to keep the relationship going, what type of work they need to get to be doing so that they are less reactive to their partner if they choose
Mhm,
to stay in that relationship. Because saying, like, I can tell you what to do, but it doesn't guarantee that your partner is going to change. And that's the hardest thing. You have so many women coming and saying, like, can you tell me what to do? Because my husband would never come into therapy. You have other men who are just, like, my husband, like, if I tell him, like, similar to what your husband said, like, maybe you need to go to a therapist, he might, like, be a little bit worried, like, oh, do you think something's wrong with you? But he will go. Like, if he needs to go, they will go. But then you have people who are on the other extreme saying, no, you get the work done because it's something you need to do, and I will never go to therapy. Like, what are you talking about? So that's a
mhm.
different type of challenge, I think.
I see us living in a future where our kids this isn't an issue for, like, I feel like help should just be available, and it's like anything else in life that you need just call it coaching around, like, it's therapy is very different than coaching, and I feel like I have such a issue with people calling themselves, like, wellness coaches.
Yeah.
But, like, if you need help with your diet, you see a dietitian. If you need help at the gym, you go to a personal trainer. If you are looking to, move up in the career ladder, you work with a career coach. And yet, there's just this, like, if we need help navigating whatever challenges we're going through, nope, gotta do it myself. Nope, that's not it just, like, it makes no
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. It's hard to explain, but it's a struggle. Yeah, sure.
Nori, we've been chatting for almost an hour now, and I know you have Ramadan this evening, and it's much further ahead, almost dinner time where you are over in Egypt. Before we wrap up, let's talk about what is exciting for you. What's filling your cup these days?
Honestly, one of the things that I look for, like I was telling you earlier on, is that this month is like the month of gatherings, getting together. That's one of the things that I don't realize the entire year that I really need until it's Ramadan and we're all like, oh, like I haven't seen my cousins or I haven't seen my sister comes in like sometimes from London and I'm like, you realize just how much you need that. So that's been filling my cup, honestly, like seeing people and getting out of my bubble and getting out of my sweatpants, which I'm wearing by the way now. So I think that's been filling my cup and just like connecting to people and getting off my phone and seeing people. And even like, honestly, it's just this conversation for me. It's the small things that I think keep me going. How about you? What are you doing these days that feels good?
Okay, I shared this on my solo episode a couple weeks ago, but I didn't share much about it because it was a very new idea. But I'm starting to plan, actually very similar in line with this whole conversation, events for women in our neighborhood. And I'm starting this spring series, they will be in May, of a couple of different types of events. So like some for moms, some for just like any women. So like we're doing a kid clothing swap. So like moms can come bring clothes that their kids don't fit in anymore, trade with another mom. So like benefits spring
Oh, yeah.
cleaning. You don't have to buy a whole new wardrobe.
Nice.
And then also like meet some other moms in the community. I'm doing a career networking event. So I'm going to do it sort of like speed dating to like do it in 15-minute increments. You like spend 5 minutes each sharing about where you are in your career and what you're looking for, whether it's like, I'm comfortable where I am, but this is what I do. And
Yeah.
then the last 5 minutes are sharing, like, I heard you say this. Like, have you thought about this? Or like connecting about industry and what people do. And then another one I'm thinking about doing, which like I'm going to say it out loud. I don't know if I'm actually going to do it. If it might be a little, I don't know if it's like controversial, but actually, this could be a topic we even talked about, like Botox for beginners, because I don't know about how the whole like aesthetic world is in Egypt, but I feel like here we have med spas, we have regular spas, like facials. I feel like there's so much around looks that feels everyone does their own little thing, but doesn't talk about it. Or if you do talk about it, it's like you do this or you do that. And so I don't know. I feel like that I want to like destigmatize some of these things of like, I hear people all the time saying like, my wrinkles are like my badge of honor because aging is a gift. Like, yes, of course, aging is a gift. And it's also okay to care about how you look. Like, you don't have to care about it, but if you do,
That's okay.
that's
I
different
would
these ways.
love to hear that. Like I'm wow. Like I would love to hear that because this is the same here in Egypt. There's an emphasis on looks. Oh my God. Like there's you have to look a certain way, you have to dress a certain way, you and it's just pressure. But I love that faith. Like the fact that you can care. It's okay to care how you don't want to age. Nobody wants to age, you know. Yeah.
And so I feel like I want to have like a little, just like, I don't know, like I don't want to add to people feeling like they have to look a certain way, but I also want it to be a, it's okay if you want to find a safe space to learn about things that you can do. I don't know. So anyway, so I'm thinking about all these like sort of like mini event series I can do
Sounds
to
like
try
fun.
and connect people. And it's been really fun. Like it's been like I'm thinking about like what would I attend or how would I want like as we were saying in the beginning, like I feel like adulthood, especially when motherhood enters the chat, like it's not conducive to meeting friends. Like you have to put yourself out there and find people that are like-minded that you would connect with. And so I'm trying to create the situations and scenarios that are conducive
To do that.
to meeting people in the same phase that you're at. So
Yeah.
it's been exciting.
That sounds like it's gonna be fun.
Well, you know what? The next time we record, we'll see, and maybe it'll be a total flop. I think it's gonna be fun too. Yes, that's exactly it. It's like, but it's also the like, as if I don't have enough things to do, like, let's just go create a whole series of events. But it's the type of work that's fun for me, and I've been enjoying it and like seeing how creative I can get to be like, I don't want to just bring a group of women together. I want it to be like, this is what we're talking about, and this is how we're connecting. And like two people meet and exchange numbers because of it. Great.
That's yeah.
Now they have a new friend.
I mean, yeah, then you've done your part, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's where we are. Okay. Well, This has really filled my cup on a Sunday morning. Thanks for letting me sit here and chat and drink my coffee with you. And I'm so glad we made this work. And I know you're gonna be repeat on here because we're just gonna keep having these conversations.
I'm ready whenever you are. I mean, I always have fun talking to you, and I think we always have so much more to say. So we definitely need to do this again. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Of course. All right, Noureen. We'll talk soon. Bye. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Catch Up with Claire. If you did, I would so appreciate if you subscribe, follow, rate, and comment wherever you're listening from. Share it with someone else you think might enjoy listening. This is how I can continue to have these conversations and bring these conversations to you. Until next time, be kind, be brave, and be safe out there.